And on another touchy front for the administration, sources say the White House is now trying to decide whether to release more information on money Mrs. Clinton invested in commodities futures trading in the late 1970s, since questions have been raised about $100,000 in profits she made, Connie.
Rita, what impact is all of this having on the White House?
Well, people here are trying to say that it has not bogged them down, although sometimes it feels like it. But I talked to Chief of Staff Mac McClarty today. He pointed out that the president's Goals 2000 education bill was passed over the weekend, and he says that health care and the crime bill are moving through Congress, Connie.
All right. Rita Braver at the White House. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Judy Woodruff is off today. With headlines such as Hillary's cash cows and editorials with titles such as Hillary in the Pits, it seems the latest White House effort to defend Hillary Rodham Clinton's financial and personal integrity has instead fueled yet another line of criticism against the First Lady. At issue, details released yesterday about Mrs. Clinton's highly profitable commodities trades. CNN's Jill Doherty is with the Clintons in California.
Well, Bernie, the White House now is indicating that it will be releasing yet more information on Mrs. Clinton's investments in commodities from the late 1970s. This new information that they're still sifting through will be information on the account that she opened with a $5,000 investment that was basically a net loss. Yesterday, as you said, they released information on a more lucrative account that Mrs. Clinton opened that netted her approximately $100,000. But aides here in California say that the First Lady is not spending a lot of time dealing with that she's trying to take advantage of family vacation. But back in Washington, this issue has sparked, her investments have sparked a real debate. Up early, the Clintons went for a morning walk on Coronado Beach, pausing to banter with a friendly crowd. But months of whitewater questions have taken a toll on Hillary Rodham Clinton's popularity. A CNN USA Today Gallup poll conducted over the weekend shows Mrs. Clinton's favorable rating has dipped 5 points since the start of the year to 52%. Her unfavorable rating, 42%, is higher than it's ever been. Tuesday, trying to put other questions to rest, the White House released details of how Mrs. Clinton in the late 1970s made almost $100,000 in commodity futures trading off an initial $1,000 investment.
To get away from the 1980s, where greed was rewarded and people got something for nothing.
The Clintons have long decried the 1980s as a decade of greed. Critics say Mrs. Clinton's lucrative investment and their separate whitewater real estate deal undercut their moral standing to criticize others.
When they hold themselves up to a particular standard and say, we are going to have the highest ethical standards ever in Washington, and we're going to get rid of that decade of greed in which Hillary Clinton seems to have profited from quite nicely, we have the right to hold them up and say, now, wait a minute, what's really going on here?
Defenders say the two issues are separate.
To turn around and say, but because you talk like that, you can never make money in your own private life. That seems to me a real stretch.
Lewis says the attacks on Hillary Clinton have more to do with her role in health care reform than with her investments.
Just as the most vicious attacks against Eleanor Roosevelt came from people who were opponents of her husband, the most vicious attacks against Hillary Clinton come from people who really want to keep Bill Clinton from doing the job he was elected to do.
One observer says he doesn't think Mrs. Clinton will be hurt by all of this, but questions her handling of the issue.
Where you start to lose the public is when you seem to be a hypocrite. If you just get out there and say, look, we made some money, we did it legally, come take a look at the books. But they did it the other way. They hid the books, and it raised questions about why they were hiding this factor, this feature of their personal life.
Aides close to Mrs. Clinton now say that she does recognize that she made mistakes in not recognizing the importance of this issue to the national media, that she thought it was, as they put it, a blip on the radar screen from 16 years ago. They say now she does understand the importance of getting out information, and she is doing that. One aide says that Mrs. Clinton initially began investing in these commodities futures to provide savings for her family, but it was all very speculative, and that aide says that the Clintons then began to invest in what they considered a more conservative investment, and that was the Whitewater land real estate deal. And as this aide put it, that turned out to be a real headache 16 years later. I'm Jill Doherty, CNN, reporting live from Coronado,
If the price
California.
of beef goes up only a nickel a pound, you've made $2,000. But if it goes down a nickel, you owe the broker $2,000, more than you invested. But in the late 70s, the cattle's futures market, where Hillary Clinton made most of her money, was booming. And some traders say she may have simply had the good fortune of good timing. From October of 78 to April of 79, the price of beef shot up from 55 cents a pound to 77 cents a pound.
The odds are extraordinarily large against you ever doing something like that. But in that particular market in 78 to 79, those things happen.
Sanders says it was the biggest bull market ever, and Hillary Clinton caught the wave. David Bloom, NBC News, Chicago.
Vice
Bergen
President
said there is nothing improper about the way she earned big profits trading cattle futures in the late 70s. Few first ladies over the years have earned as much attention as Hillary Clinton. Correspondent Richard Threlkeld looks at Mrs. Clinton under fire in tonight's Eye on America.
Our children are perishing because we can't...
As women today, you do face tough
sustain that kind of attitude at the presidential level. Well, I hope you'll vote for my husband on Tuesday. Yes, thank you.
Even in the presidential campaign, you could see this First Lady was not going to be traditional.
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had tea.
Quite the contrary. Hillary Rodham Clinton took over the East Wing of the White House and health reform.
Considered essential community providers.
She wowed them in Congress.
In the very near future, the president will be known as your husband. Who's that fella? That's Hillary's husband.
Smart, articulate, her husband's equal partner, the most powerful and public First Lady ever. Saint Hillary, they called her.
The minute I saw that New York Times Magazine cover with her, Saint Hillary, many of us saw that and said, this is the end.
This is
because
trouble.
Everyone who's built up like that automatically gets taken down.
Ellen Hume of the Annenberg think tank believes much of the current furor over Mrs. Clinton and Whitewater stems from her attempts to rewrite the First Lady's job description.
She collided with the myth that the First Lady also has to be the first hostess.
The Whitewater affair has always been more about Hillary Clinton than her husband. Critics have called into question her competence, her judgment, even her ethics. In trying to make a big job out of the role of First Lady, she's also made herself a big target.
When the going gets tough in this White House, the toughs start pointing fingers, and they're pointing fingers at the First Lady.
Washington journalist Sally Quinn thinks some of the men around the president have found Mrs. Clinton a convenient scapegoat. It hasn't helped that both the Clintons have spent so much time preaching the politics of virtue.
I think in the end, when all these questions get asked and answered, her moral authority will be stronger than it has ever been.
If you stake out a high moral ground, then you have to be perfect. And if you are shown to have any flaws, then people are going to turn on you.
Nor has Mrs. Clinton helped herself by leaving the impression she considers Whitewater a private affair. She's not shy about talking to David Letterman's mom.
You'll have to come visit us in the White House sometime.
But she's carefully avoided most national reporters' questions about Whitewater. Republican Congresswoman Susan Molinari says the First Lady can't have it both ways.
You want to be a public figure or a private figure, but you can't mix the two roles. It just isn't fair to the American public.
Be one or the other.
You have to be one or the other.
Both Mrs. Clinton and allies like Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro still insist Whitewater's an attempt to divert attention from health reform.
Maybe the press is bored with health care and the discussion. We've been talking about it for 6 months, and we're going to talk about it for another several months. So why not take a look at devouring Hillary Clinton?
Well, she's not a member of the old male guard.
The First Lady also has some allies in successful career women like Barbara Corcoran, who runs a big New York real estate company.
Women have a harder time gaining respect and acknowledgement. And then once they have it, there's that group of people who are waiting for them to fall on their face. And the criticism is that much more when they do fall.
The Clintons said they came to Washington to change things. No question, Hillary Rodham Clinton has forever changed the role of First Lady, no matter what comes of Whitewater. In Washington, I'm Richard Threlkeld for Eye on America.
Started out with Hillary Clinton at the same law firm in Arkansas. Now they find themselves together in the same boat, fighting off Whitewater. Correspondent Scott Pelley reports tonight on the blight hitting the Rose Law Firm and its sweet smell of success.
I, William Jefferson Clinton.
For the Rose Law Firm, this moment held every promise of power, prestige, and Washington wealth. Dreams now destroyed by death and scandal in a stunning reversal for one of the nation's oldest law firms. Over its 172-year history, Rose became an Arkansas powerhouse, attracting the state's biggest clients: Tyson Chicken, Stevens Investments, TCBY Yogurt. It all seemed to peak when four partners, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Webster Hubbell, Vince Foster, and William Kennedy, went to Washington. It's over now, with Foster dead, Hubbell out, Kennedy demoted, and the First Lady under investigation. At home, the bloom is off. One recent night, partners voted to bring an ethics complaint against their former partner, Hubbell, who's accused of overbilling clients and cheating on expenses. Earlier, two employees told a grand jury they shredded Vince Foster files. Documents obtained by CBS News show Rose is named in Whitewater subpoenas and in an investigation of overbilling in the federal savings and loan bailout. Now, clients are nervous. Some are reportedly looking for new lawyers, while others audit their bills. Cannon Trucking examined its Rose bills and is one of many clients to get calls of assurance from the firm.
We received a call assuring us that Mr. Hubbell had no affiliation with any of the work that we had done.
Publicly, Rose says little. Spokesman Ron Clark refuses virtually every call. But other partners are talking anonymously. One member of the firm told CBS News the scandal is causing bitter resentment of the Clinton administration. They're not loyal people, he said, adding, it's only a matter of time before they blame it all on Rose. Scott Pelley, CBS News, Little Rock.